you really need a high level of communication to be able to account for shifts and motions against a team like Kansas City. Um, and if you're a new unit, a lot of new pieces, new to the team, or just inexperienced pieces, that's a real challenge this early in the year, especially. You see Kansas City trying to, as they motion this back to the right to left here, trying to gain a numbers advantage on this side. And the Ravens are left with nobody that's going to cover the swing route of this receiver, this running back. Once he motions, you can see the communication begin, and there's really confusion, and nobody accounts for the swing. Let's watch it. And that's just too far for Kenny to run, to have to run. You don't want him running with the back upon the motion. You can see he moves him just a little, but he's got to stay home to be part of this run fit. So that's going to fall on somebody else. You could pass it off to Owasu or Jefferson. You could even ask McPhee to get out on it. But the point is, you'd have to communicate this in the film room, and then once you see it, you might talk about it as it's going on, and then the next time you see it, you just do it. You don't need to talk about it. And I'm pretty confident that's what will happen. Here, given the benefit of hindsight, I think Owasu's in a much better position, even though he's on a called blitz here, where you could shift those responsibilities, and Kenny might blitz where Patrick goes. Once he reads pass, Patrick might go out and cover the swing here. It's interesting too because Mahomes makes some sort of a call here at the line upon this shift, where everybody, and I guess most specifically these tight ends, they understand that the running back is now going to be the absolute, number one read on this. They really do not offer much except for this pretense of running a route. These guys are glorified blockers here. That's all they're doing. And Mahomes is left to contend with the end, McPhee, and get the ball out quickly. Again, it's 3rd and 2. And that motion and also the lack of, experience and communication on the defensive side here really allows them an easy conversion on 3rd down. It's 1st and goal. It's the very next play, and it's interesting that you see Kansas City aligned in exactly the same formation. 2 receivers stacked here. Two tight ends to the left, and right down to the motioning of the back right to left. And you can see as soon as that motion occurs, Chuck begin to talk, and Tony, just the communication. Kenny to Patrick. Patrick elects, for one reason or another, not to get flat here, but to go outside of Tony. And this is to account for not only the swing route, but also the potential release of a tight end. So that's very clever on their part. One play later, they don't have the blitz on, and that certainly helps. They don't get caught that way. Chuck does a good job here too, getting off this block, and this is because he reads it. He's reading exactly what Kansas City's doing one play later, and Kansas City gets a few yards on this, but it's a nice read by the Ravens one play later. And I think I said this already, but it's encouraging. It's striking how the play is pretty much exactly the same, right down to the routes these guys run, 12 yards farther in. This play actually preceded the 2 we just looked at, but they were back-to-back. They're just not in sequence in the video. The Chiefs are going to run 2 guys in motion here at different interval. A bit of a mesh behind the line of scrimmage. And they run them both out wide into the opposite flat. The intent being to kind of spread this defense out wide to either side and open up the middle. And that's what happens. But you can see there's a breakdown in terms of assignment or communication of assignment, what needs to change. That's often what we're talking about. We're not necessarily talking about a blown assignment right off the ball, but changes brought about in how they're communicated, but changes in the backfield or in motions or in shifts and how they're communicated defensively. what we see here is Chuck pretty determined about staying in man coverage, and he's going to follow that release. You end up with two defenders to the flat on both sides, and you can see that's not necessarily, particularly here, I think Judon does a good job reading that motion, and he's going to get out on that receiver. You don't need Owasu to do the same. So that's something you would see on film, or they will see on film, and they'll clean up, and Judon could stay home. Same thing here. It's probably Chuck that needs to allow Kenny to pick up this flat receiver and then stay home. And you can see right there, just a wide open middle. Interesting too, the Chiefs really leave no stone unturned. This receiver is going to run right at Tony, kind of force Tony to get on top of him and around him, and that clears a little bit of a, almost like effectively a downfield screen, but really nicely executed. And you can see the whole intent of this play is to get Travis Kelce open in the middle of the field, and it really works like a charm. But these are the sort of things they'll clean up. They'll see it and they'll clean this up.